First at 9 this Friday, the 21st of March 2025. Stamp of approval. Budget 2025 passed by a majority of 114 votes.
වැඩි ඡන්ද 114කින් සම්මත වූ බව මේ සභාවට දන්වනු කැමැත්තෙමි.
$1 trillion target. Aim for $1 trillion economy by 2055, asserts former President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Further calls on policy stability for economic recovery. Top cop jailed. 6 nabbed over the 2023 Valigama shooting, granted bail. Suspended IGP Deshabandhu Tennakon remanded until the 3rd of April. Graduate grudge. 35,000 jobs demanded by unemployed graduates. Vows to protest again within a week.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. Obe Vishwasi Dinu Sensorain, then Lagamati Pharmacy in Labagata Hacker.
Kanta Parisan Karagatot? Api Parisan.
ඉතින් මොකටද නිකන් නාගන්නේ? ස්වදේශී කොහොඹ lemon grass අද කාලෙට ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ම විසඳුම.
This is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Ada Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now on your top story tonight, the appropriation bill for the year 2025 was passed in Parliament today with amendments by a majority of 114 votes. 159 parliamentarians were in favour of the bill and 45 against, while none abstained.
Even though on page 165 of the government's manifesto, a proposal has been made to systematically integrate 2,000 megawatts of solar power to the national grid, some decisions they made after assuming power are contrary to their manifesto. Therefore, I present these questions to clarify the government's policy on energy. Last evening, I received 6 questions which comprised 32 sub-questions, which I feel is in violation of the standing orders. I would like to emphasize that I submitted these questions in accordance with the standing orders. Opposition leader, there is no point of order here. I saw the questions. There were 32 of them. The most pressing issue raised through these questions is whether you will protect the diesel mafia or prioritize solar power. We do not care who stands with the diesel mafia, the tobacco mafia or the central bank scammers. We have proven where we stand. Yesterday, Dilip Piris claimed that he cannot come to court without security. This is an additional Solicitor General making this claim. The Public Security Minister claimed that they attempted to arrest IGP Deshabandhu Tennakon, but that he surrendered when his property was about to be seized. Deputy Minister Watagala claimed that he knew where the IGP was hiding and that the authorities would arrest him. Was he arrested? I urge the opposition not to perpetuate the lie that I claim to have knowledge of the locations of Ishara Sewandi or Deshabandhu Tennakon. I only said that legal action would be taken against them. I have an audio recording of this statement. Please table it. Those who complained about Deshabandhu Tennakon not being arrested shielded him when they held ministerial portfolios. They are only putting on spectacles for the media in Parliament because of the Speaker's humbleness. When Chamal Rajapaksa was the Speaker, a single glance from him would make them cower. I urge MP Dayasiri not to waste the time of this House. I heard a leader of a certain musical group promise that his friends will remit $500 each. But now the band, the leader's friends or the funds are nowhere to be found. But we did receive something. We got to count monkeys, the Batalanda Commission report and a game of hide and seek featuring the IGP and Ishara Sewandi. The Inland Revenue Department is given estimated revenue targets each month. In January and February and up to the 17th of March, the department has collected revenue equivalent to 123% of the target, which amounts to 438,991,000 rupees.
දේශීය ආදායම් දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවෙන්
දිගින් දිගටම පෞගිය මැතිවරණ
None of the promises made prior to the elections have been fulfilled. You promised to extradite Arjuna Mahendran and imprison Ranil Wickremesinghe. But today, the central bank scam has been brushed aside in favour of the Batalanda Commission report.
ඔබතුමාලා බටලන්ද ගෙනල්ලා තියෙනවා.
අද මේ සජබේ ඔය ආර්ථික ඔස්තාදට වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඒකයි.
The SJB's economic experts thought the IMF truly supported them, but the IMF wanted a success story. The local government elections are scheduled for the 6th of May, but you have to only wait until the 10th of April, which is only 20 days away. I urge the opposition not to embarrass themselves by claiming that there will not be a salary hike, because there will be a considerable increase.
දැන් ඔබතුමන්ලා මේ අද හැසිරුනේ මේ පළවෙනි වතාවට ඔබතුමන්ලා ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක් පත් කරා වගේ.
You act as if this is the first time you've elected a president. It is not Anura Dissanayake whom you elected as your first president, but Mahinda Rajapaksa in 2005. It was not us who were members of Chandrika Kumaratunga's cabinet, but you. Therefore, can you really claim not to have worked with Ranil Wickremesinghe, whom you criticize so much?
ඒක නෑ කියන්න පුළුවන්ද?
ඔබ දක්වන කලබලය අපිට ඉතා හොඳින් තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන්.
We can clearly understand the panic that you are exhibiting now. We will transform all economic policies used in the past to those which benefit the public. We will take that decisive step. The first thing we must do is to stabilize the economy. We would like to remind you that we will no longer trigger transformation, sans stability. When we came to power, the country had already entered the Extended Fund Facility program with the International Monetary Fund. To manifest the transformation you required, we had to choose between two paths. One path was to continue with the IMF. The other was to abandon it. You wanted to pull out of the IMF deal. Since we aren't so naive, we won't fall into that trap. We are extremely happy about the advancement we have made within the last 4 months, which have paved the way for a favourable future. On the 21st of December, an official announcement was made that we exited bankruptcy. During the last 4 months, we have stabilised the dollar at 300 rupees. This happened after 3 years. Don't you consider that to be good? You can do politics as much as you like. However, please don't disseminate lies to cause economic instability. Your economists might make certain economic classifications. However, those classifications and assertions must be made responsibly. The next main question is with regard to salary increments to state sector employees. I met with numerous trade unions in the recent past. Representatives of all the trade unions said they did not expect this kind of increment to their basic salaries. You did not expect it either. A person receiving a salary of 53,000 will receive a salary increased up to 94,000 rupees. It is very convenient for us if they asked for just 10,000 rupees. They could have demanded it. They also could have demanded 25,000 rupees. However, our decision to increase salaries was done scientifically. There was a method to calculate overtime hours of various sectors, including the health sector. The OT rate for doctors was calculated by dividing the total amount by 80. The OT rate for nurses was calculated by dividing the value by 160. However, when the new basic salary is divided by 120, the new quotient is still higher than when the previous basic salary is divided by 80. We have increased the basic salary by such a significant amount. Certain professionals raised concern on the reduction of their rights. We also had an alternative proposal. We could have gone ahead with the value obtained after dividing the salary by 80 and then increase the basic salary corresponding to it. However, we faced an issue. We have to maintain a salary ratio of 1 to 4. 1 corresponds to those at the lowest level. Therefore, the salaries of those in the bottom will only increase if the salaries of those on top increase. This is why we focused mainly on increasing the basic salary. If necessary, we will pass the following amendment. The formula used to calculate your dues at the moment corresponds to the salary you receive in January 2027. The basic salaries which have to be divided by 80 will be divided and 1/3 of that value will be provided to you. Salaries divided by 120, which was increased to 160, will be divided by 120 itself and 3/4 of that value will be provided. Salaries divided by 160, which was increased to 200, will be divided by 160 itself and 4/5 of that value will be provided. Salaries divided by 200, which was increased to 240, will be divided by 200 itself of, and 5/6 of that value will be provided. The remainder will be provided once the country's economy reaches stability. If they assert that the division of their salary by 80 is a right, we will protect it. By doing so, we will protect their fundamental rights. We are made aware of certain things only now. When I became the president, my pension amount was similar to that of a parliamentarian. Previous presidents also received the same amount. I received the pension of a parliamentarian in addition to the president's salary. Today, I handed over a letter asserting that I do not need the pension of a parliamentarian. We must start to develop this country. Previous presidents collected both salaries and did not utter a word about it. This is how they were. We got to know about it. I was not aware of this and later on found that a pension was also provided. On the other hand, when a parliamentarian becomes a minister, they receive salaries as both a parliamentarian and a minister. This is how they have been exploiting everything. Did you ever think our country is like this? We arrived at a decision that our parliamentarians and ministers will only obtain the salary of parliamentarians. We have handed over the necessary letters. Parliamentarians and deputy ministers will acquire their fuel allowances. However, when considering parliamentarian salaries, the fuel allowance is removed. We must be fair and just in order to develop this country. On the other hand, we will be abolishing the pensions of parliamentarians. The relevant act will be presented to Parliament soon. The President's Entitlement Act will be amended. The Act 2 will be tabled in Parliament soon. I believe there will be several acts which will gain everyone's vote in favour of it. 159 votes have been cast in favour while 45 votes have been cast against the third reading of the Appropriation Bill 2025 with amendments. None abstained from voting. Accordingly, I would like to inform the House that Appropriation Bill 2025 has been passed with amendments after the third reading with a majority of 114 votes.
පිරිපුන් ජීවිතයකට ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට යූනියන් ඇෂුවරන්ස්.
චන්දුරුසුනේ කාගෙන් වන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Meanwhile, the Joint Unemployed Graduates Association took to the streets once more today, demanding the government to make good on the election pledge and provide employment to all 35,000 unemployed graduates. The protests were staged at the Parliament Junction earlier today, while the third reading of the budget was underway in Parliament. Before they dispersed, the protesters vowed to stage another protest within a week and went on to claim that the government cannot quell their concerns through violence.
On the 17th of March, the Joint Unemployed Graduates Association launched a protest at the Parliament Junction, demanding the government to provide employment opportunities as promised in the lead-up to the parliamentary election. Claiming a lack of response from the relevant authorities even after the demonstration on the 17th, the Joint Unemployed Graduates Association launched another demonstration today. The protest was staged while the third reading of the budget was underway in Parliament. The Joint Unemployed Graduates Association claims that since the current tally of unemployed graduates stands at 35,000, the government's proposal to provide 30,000 jobs would still leave 5,000 graduates unemployed. As tensions ran high at the Parliament Junction, the riot police was deployed to control potential unrest. The police deployed as such later foiled an attempt by protesters to march towards Parliament. The protesters who resumed demonstrations at the Parliament Junction following their failed attempt to reach Parliament squared off with the police once more while the police attempted to disperse the crowd. Leader of the second generation party, Uindu Vijayveera, was also seen at the protest. During the protest, the protesters vowed to stage another protest within a week and went on to claim that the government cannot quell their concerns through violence. Demonstrators who remained at the Parliament Junction for another hour dispersed later.
Now, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe says Sri Lanka must adopt an ambitious target of $1 trillion economy by 2055. Joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivari Amuwatha, the former president emphasized that the global power will shift to the Indian Ocean region in the coming years and urged Sri Lanka to capitalize on this shift. Wickremesinghe further urged the new Sri Lankan government to ensure policy stability and continuity, as it will be important in maintaining investor confidence, which in turn is crucial for Sri Lanka's economic recovery.
Our options are limited. India bailed us out, but this 4.5 billion alone is not sufficient. If we do some major projects with India, our growth is there, our recovery is there. And once India invests in us, other people will also come in, because the Bay of Bengal will be very important. By 2050, India will be the second largest economy. And the highest per capita income in the world will be in Singapore. And Tamil Nadu is one of the fastest growing states. Andhra, Telangana, all of them will have a $6 trillion economy. My idea was, why can't we have a $1 trillion economy by 2050, 2055? It's possible, but you have to get on to it.
How can Sri Lanka be at the center of linking the region?
It's not only Indian economy. Bangladesh economy will increase fourfold. It's a dynamic. Thailand is dynamic. Indonesia is going to be dynamic. Malaysia is already growing. By that time, we hope problems in Myanmar will settle. They want to have the Myanmar-China corridor. This is the eastern part of the Bay of Bengal. We are the west part. There's no connectivity there. So if we have it, we can match it. Having a $1 trillion economy is a 10-fold increase. If India is going for 9-fold, why don't we go for 10-fold?
Where do you think this global power shift will go to, especially in the next few decades?
Global power shift was coming to Asia, but more to Indian Ocean. Everything must go through the Indian Ocean, and the growth in the Indian Ocean will be far more faster than the Asia Pacific. The BRICS are also becoming important. Global power is shifting here, and most important is going to be the Indian Ocean, and we are in the middle of it. Are we going to make use of it? Are we going to become economically powerful? I should, because if your income will grow 5-fold or 10-fold, are you for it or against it?
Do you think you were able to lay the foundation for Sri Lanka to take advantage of this power shift to our region during your tenure?
The framework has been laid. It's a question of if they are going to continue or not. The framework requires confidence by other countries. If you don't do that, the rest is useless.
The government implemented your IMF agreement, but also challenged that certain other agreements will be reviewed, especially amendments to the Economic Transformation Act. How do you think this will showcase Sri Lanka's policy stability and continuation?
You should continue the same policies. If you are amending it, it must be within the framework, and it must be agreed to by the IMF. Then IMF is also answerable to the creditor nations and also the private bondholders. They are very, very careful. You can't be changing things like earlier. If you want to change the Economic Transformation Act, then you must say what it is. There are a lot of loose talk, but so far I don't see very much of implementation taking place, which I think is going to be the major problem.
Where do you think Sri Lanka's economy stands today from where you left off?
We have stabilized the economy. The next phase is recovery. 2 years to stabilize. I didn't want to go on like Greece forever and ever. So we've done that. Now they have to carry on and go to the next phase, recovery. But recovery is also tied with growth. Investment leads not only to recovery but to growth. And you must start now.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
ඩයිබටසෝල් සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම්වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
කැලනි වයර් කිසිගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසිගින්නක් නෑ. කැලනි ෆයර් ෂීල්ඩ් වයර්.
Now in other local news, the Matra magistrate Aruna Buddhadasa ordered today the release of 6 suspects nabbed over the shooting incident that took place near a hotel in Valigama in 2023 on 2 surety bonds of 1 million rupees each. The decision was made after the suspects were produced to the Matra Magistrates Court after they surrendered via a motion. Attorneys representing the 6 suspects claimed that only their clients are able to provide eyewitness testimony of the incident and informed court that they are willing to make a special statement before the magistrate at a future date. After considering the facts presented, the Matra magistrate ordered that the 6 suspects be released on 2 surety bonds of 1 million rupees each. Additionally, the suspects were ordered to appear before the Criminal Investigation Department tomorrow to record statements. Now, with the crucial local government polls just around the corner, let's see what public representatives had to say about Sri Lanka's current political landscape.
The NPP secured more than 5.6 million votes at the presidential election. Subsequently, the NPP secured an overwhelming 6.8 million votes at the parliamentary election. The NPP now has 2/3 majority in parliament. It is certain that the NPP will govern the next 5 years. We too claimed that we will be in power for decades. We said we were invincible since we secured 2/3 in parliament. We bragged on about our then unprecedented represented election victory. However, we had to leave power. Those boastful remarks are a sign that the end is near. They claim that the intelligent public voted them into office. The intelligent public will change their preferences quickly.
Hundreds of thousands of people have united behind the NPP. The presidency and the parliament are ours. Local government authorities are the best places to solve issues grappling the common man.
We will never be wronged since we never fooled the people. We have never lied. Make the SJB victorious to sound the alarm against all liars. It is certain that the people will choose the SJB on the 6th of May.
We need proper concepts and attitudes if we are to develop the economy of the grassroots. To that end, the Sarvajana Balaya as a new party continues to attract the public.
The NPP will win this election with certainty. You can be a part of that victory. Don't darken the future of your towns and the entire country by voting the opposition into power.
The NPP thinks that all those who voted for them during the parliamentary election are still with them. We too made that mistake. If they consider their seats in parliament to directly correspond to their public approval, they will go back down to 3%. They don't have the same numbers behind them anymore.
The government will only be able to implement its agenda in the grassroots if competent local government authorities work in tandem with the government. If the government and the local government authorities are on opposite sides, there will be a divergence. It is imperative for the power of the local governments to be vested with the incumbent government.
It makes sense to vest more power with the government if it has solved the issues grappling the public after securing the presidency and 2/3 in parliament. However, that has not happened. That is why we claim that there is no point in vesting the power of the local governments with them. If they are given that power too, they will destroy towns and villages.
At times, a stupendous amount of money has to be spent to protect the superficial needs of politicians. Our Prime Minister, who secured several 100,000 votes, asserted that she will claim the perks and privileges that she is entitled to. She claimed that she never promised to refuse luxury vehicles. She seems to be experiencing that privilege more than former Premier Dinesh Gunawardena. This superficial political discourse can never trigger development. For development, a country needs an agenda and pragmatic people.
Welcome back. You're joining Ada Derana, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. Now, a Sri Lankan Air Force fighter jet on a training mission crashed into Warriapala earlier this morning. Fortunately, the flight instructor and the trainee pilot ejected off the aircraft in time, avoiding any fatalities. The Sri Lankan Air Force, meanwhile, vowed to conduct an investigation into the crash.
A K-8 jet of the Sri Lanka Air Force took off from the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayake today at 7:27 a.m. on a training mission. After a brief flight, the aircraft crashed into Minuwangate, Warriapala at around 7:55 a.m. this morning. However, fatalities were avoided with flight instructor and the trainee pilot ejecting off the aircraft safely and descending by parachute. The jet, which crashed into a coconut plantation, meanwhile caught fire on impact. After ejecting safely, the flight instructor and the trainee pilot landed near the Sundaragama Vidyalaya, Aulegama. The trainee pilot and the instructor were promptly admitted to the Kurunegala hospital for treatment, with the flight instructor sustaining injuries during his descent when he crashed into an electricity transmission line. In the aftermath of the crash, the Sri Lanka Air Force declared that investigations have been launched to determine whether the cause of the crash was a technical error or a fault in the radar system. According to reports, since the SVR machine of the aircraft is intact despite the crash, the cause of the crash can be uncovered by examining the flight data stored within the machine. The flight instructor involved in the accident was uncovered to be Wing Commander Sudarshana Bandara, while the trainee pilot was uncovered to be Sajid Daulage. According to sources, the aircraft was imported from China in 2005. The Air Force claims that the jet in question was used to train fighter pilots during Sri Lanka's civil war as well. The Air Force went on to assert that the jet was examined by 2 officers of the Chinese manufacturing company last year, while claiming further that the manufacturers had offered a 2-year guarantee. The Chinese manufacturers have also declared that the aircraft is fit for flight operations. Upon preliminary examinations, the Air Force claims that no technical faults were recorded during takeoff.
Now in your business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange ended this week in positive territory as a result of price gains in counters such as Commercial Bank, Hat National Bank and National Development Bank. The all-share price index closed 1.38% higher at 15,879.33 points, while the S&P Sri Lanka 20 increased by 1.41% to close at 4,766.57 points. Market turnover was 1.6 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to market turnover, followed by the banking sector as the second highest contributor. Furthermore, foreigners closed as net sellers, offloading shares worth 252 million rupees. With that, here's a look at the rupee exchange rates for the day. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.